Okay, let's try this one. So if I'm going to just change it to x for my own satisfaction. So again, we're going in radians and 0 to 2 pi. So I'm going to think of this as the trinomial 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 equals 0. And I can factor this, 2x, 1 plus plus. So instead of x, it's going to be 2 sine of x plus 1 times sine of x plus 1. And then I'll set each of these equal to 0. So 2 sine of x plus 1 equals 0. 2 sine of x equals -1, divide by 2, and sine of x equals -1/2. Okay, and we'll look at our unit circle. Signs are negative in the 2 lower quadrants, and 1/2 is my short here. So I'll be out here and here. It looks like 11 pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. And then this one, where sine of x plus 1 equals 0 minus the 1. And what angle has a sine of -1? Well, right there. That's our 3 pi over 2. So the angles would be, I'll just put theta equals, actually it would be t in this case. T equals, looks like 7 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, and 3 pi over 2. Okay. Let's see. Well, let's do another trick. Okay. So a little bigger. Okay, notice we have a sine and a cosine. That's not okay because that's like having an x and a y in the same equation. So we know one of our identities was sine squared x equals 1 minus cosine squared x. And let's use that instead of sine x. We don't need that. Okay, sorry about this. You guys are noticing I'm getting used to my, so you don't have to see the hand, but there are things that still happen. So let's put 2, instead of sine, let's put 1 minus cosine squared. And I'm changing it to x's. That's my preference. Cosine x equals 1. All right, so I'm going to distribute the 2 in here. So 2 times 1 and 2 times cosine squared x minus cosine x. And it looks like I'm going to have 2 variables, the cosine squared and the cosine, so I'm going to have to factor this. I'm going to keep this positive, so I'm going to move everything to this side. And so I'm going to have 0 over here. And I'll keep my 2 cosine x, only it becomes positive. If I'm moving it to the other side, my minus cosine becomes positive. My 2 becomes negative, and I still have that 1 there. Okay? And that will also then simplify to 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x minus 1. Okay, and then I can factor this as, I'll have a cosine x and a 2 cosine x. I usually put my 2 first, but as long as they times to this, and I've got to have a 1 times 1 that times to that, and I'm looking for a positive 1 in the middle, so that's going to be 2 minus 1, so plus 2 and minus 1. And then we'll set each of these equal to 0, so I've got cosine x plus 1 equals 0, and 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0. And then we've got cosine x equals -1, and that's going to be right here, so x equals pi. And then we've got 2 cosine x equals 1 divided by 2, or cosine x equals 1/2, and my positive cosines are over here. 1/2 gives me the high and the low, which is pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So we've got our, so our t in this case would be pi over 3, pi, and 5 pi over 3. Okay, if you want it nice and neat, these are worked out in your textbook. Okay, let's try another one. And again, we're looking at the same substitution. So we'll let sine squared x equal 1 minus cosine squared x. So 2 times 1 minus cosine squared x equals 3 times cosine x. And we're in radians here. So I need to get them on the same side. So let's move this to the other side. So we'll get, and I'll distribute this at the same time. So we'll get 2 minus 2 cosine squared x. And then we're moving that minus 3 cosine x equals 0. I'm going to put this in. Oh, wow. So that's a -2. Matter of fact, I'm going to move them all to the other side, you guys, and just switch all the signs. So that 2 is going to become a -2. That -2 becomes, that's what I want. I want a positive leading coefficient. And then this will become a +3. So if I'm confusing you, check it out in the textbook if you'd like. But bottom line, this, I need to factor it again. So let's split this up. We have 2 cosine times cosine, and I've got a 2 and a 1. I need to get a 3, so I'm going to put the 2 out here so I get a 4, and I'll put the 1 here so I get a 1. So I've got a +4 minus 1 gives me a +3. So then I'll say 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0, and cosine x plus 2 equals 0. And then we'll solve these by putting the 1 there, dividing by 2, and this one will just minus the 2, so cosine x equals -2. Okay, so on this one, cosine is positive. That's over here. It's 1/2, so again, we're high, and that's looking like pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. And this guy, you're not going to have a cosine greater than 1 or less than -1. So the answers would be pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. Okay, and I'm going to end this video with one little tech. So you're going to just read the sections 7.2 and 7.3, but I wanted to show you that these two are the ones I told you that we do see often, okay? And let's just do one simple substitution to show you, okay, that, oh goodness, okay. So I wanted you to see this. Okay, so we're going to use, so we have a cosine of 2t and a cosine of t. Now, one way to do it is to graph them, and that's kind of cool to see the intersection points over here on the graph. So we know there's 4 solutions in between 0 and 2 pi, which is 6.28, okay? But to do it algebraically, if we make the substitution for cosine of 2t equals 2 cosine squared, this one right here, that's not going to help us too much. I mean, we could, and then we could factor that out. We definitely could do that. We could also just simply go with this one. Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, heck with that. Let's just do that. Let's do this one, do it in one step. Okay, so let's take the cosine of 2t equals 2 cosine squared t minus 1. And that's the same as the cosine of 2t. And now if I just put them all on the same side, so let's move this guy over. So I'll have 2 cosine squared t minus cosine t minus 1 equals 0. Then I factor it, and I get my 2 cosine t and my 1. And now see, I want a -1, so I want a -2 plus 1. And then we'll set each of these equal to 0. And there, we'll give myself a little bit of 2 cosine t plus, oh, I'm going to keep going. Sorry about the line. And then cosine t minus 1 equals 0. And then we'll get 2 cosine t equals -1. Cosine t equals -1/2. And then you can see that t in that case on our unit circle is this guy and this guy, which would be 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. And then we've got cosine of t equals 1, and that would be 0 or 2 pi. So here we go. Okay, so our solutions would be 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, and 0. Okay, now it's section 7.4. You're just going to be reading and sharing in the discussion. It's a real interesting section. 7.2 and 7.3, just read over it, do a quick summary on those. Basically, they're going to be showing you some identities, and that's it. Okay, we're done with this one.